This is Biggie Juice. This is not Vegas. If y'all don't watch me, I'll kick your ass with this stick. You.
First, I'm rehearsing with the leaders of this country. I'm gonna talk to the leaders and ask them if they're fine with the megaphone.
Are you trying to have sex with me? Get out of my mind! Get out of my free will! Get out of my way! Humanity is going interstellar.
These are my guys. These are my guys, large fry.
Hello, Ops. Seems like you misinterpreted my 10 a.m. League of Legends ranking for a lack of motion. Couldn't have been more wrong.
Got a meme here that I put in my stack and I lost. But man, does it say it all. Can't find it now.
Yo.
What up, fam?
All right, boys, we're back. We're back in the flesh after a little digital vacation. We recorded, I guess every week we missed recording in person. We did record something, it's just we haven't put it out.
Yeah, in some Californication.
Yeah,
Californication?
we did like a little live stream, and we did a did we already talk about this on an episode? No, we didn't. No, there's no way. Did a little live stream on Twitch. I think it's at Camp Cozy.
Camp Cozy Gang on Twitch. Follow us there.
Yeah, Camp Cozy Gang on Twitch. We played, I think we started this stream with Siege, but we got off that pretty quick and went over to Sea of Thieves.
Yeah,
Had a lot more fun.
We're definitely going to be live streaming some more, though, so check us out there. And we'll be streaming on YouTube, too, hopefully, sometime in the near future.
We want to cross-stream and also maybe cut the streams down into smaller little funny moments, clips and bits.
Yeah, get some good clips on
Eventually,
YouTube
we want to get on TikTok and
oh boy,
start posting those clips, start getting that ad revenue. That's
Hey man.
Hey dude, don't knock the hustle. You know what I'm saying? Ain't shit for free in this world. But we're back. We got our first official topic episode. And it was I was brainstorming on like topics to do for our podcast, just in general, before I came to the conclusion of this one. But I realized it was ultimately going to fall into like billionaire antichrist aliens, weird sex perverts, and that could also have overlap with the billionaires. And then just like fucked up shit the three-letter agencies have been up to over the years. It's kind of like what my my little wheelhouse of interest kind of falls into.
Gene Revolution.
Yeah. So for the first episode, our first topic-based episode, we're basically gonna be we're gonna be talking oil.
Oil.
We're talking oil.
Big oil.
And,
big oil, brother.
Kind of
and the Rockefeller.
The Rockefeller clan, what they've been up to.
The Roth clan.
Secret. I mean, it's the secret. It's the secret. I would call it like almost the royal families of America.
Can we make sure we touch on the Bill Livingston?
We're gonna. I'm starting it from the beginning. I'm starting it from the absolute beginnings of the Rockefeller story.
I think that's probably the funniest part to me was the start of this with the Bill Livingston shit.
So we're working off of a somewhat aged alternative media documentary called How Big Oil Conquered the World. It's by it was supposed to be the Corbett Report. I forget the gentleman's first name, but it's here. Hold on, I should be able to pull it up right here. Hold on, give me 1 second. I want to give credit where credit's due. James Corbett. So James Corbett, he runs the Corbett Report. He's an independent journalist. I found out he's an anarchist, and he's also an expat Canadian that lives in Japan now. And he runs all of this stuff while living in Japan.
Oh,
And it kind of gives some important insight. And I'll bring him back. I'll bring up his like personal insight once we get a little bit further down the line. But he was basically talking about like maglev technology and how living in Japan, he realized like how crucial it is for a country to have infrastructure like quality public transportation, which is something that I'm pretty sure we can agree on that definitely lacks in America, considering like, you know,
How big this place is.
half the people that lose their jobs these days end up driving for Uber, which is, you know, unheard of in these other countries because they don't need these services. But we'll get into that a little bit further down the story. So we're going to kick it off right now. I got some notes and stuff that I'm going to be reading off of and then kind of extrapolating on a little bit. But we're going to kick it off all the way at the beginning of the story. And the beginning of the story, the beginning of the Rockefeller family story, let me pull up some important info that I can have here first. A gentleman by the name of Dr. Bill Livingston. Dr. Bill Livingston. Kind of sounds like, you know, dude with a little credibility until you, I think he was titled as a cancer specialist.
Yeah, they were celebrated cancer specialist,
Yeah.
which was absolutely like so far from the truth.
and it, you know, how convenient.
Just
He
a
wasn't
straight scammer.
He wasn't pulling up crude oil. He was pulling up snake oil.
Yeah,
He was a snake oil salesman.
they called him
basically,
Devil Bill for
Devil,
a while.
Yep, Devil Bill. His real name wasn't even Livingston, but I'm gonna read through this transcript kind of in order and then go from there. But basically, he sold this thing called the Rock Oil Tonic. It was a mixture of like laxative and petroleum,
yeah.
which had no effects whatsoever on cancer. People were buying it; they were falling for the scam. To the point where he kind of lived his life on the run for a while, constantly moving, a vagabond. Always coming up with like different schemes. I mean, he's kind of like he is the like perfect Western trope of the snake oil salesman. Probably the dude with the cart with all the painting on the side of it that says like, you know, the wonderful cures, and he puts on a show and, you know, oh, here, you have these elements, you can take a sip of this. And, you know, you've seen it in like old Western movies and video games. Fallout. Yeah, the guy in Fallout. Yeah, exactly. Basically just a dude who's always a carpetbagger, I think is another word that they've used to describe. Actually, I think that's a little bit
trickster.
But a trickster.
A cheapskate.
A cheapskate, yeah. And
He would even there's like a part I remember where he was like, he would even cheat his children any chance he got to keep him on keep him on edge.
Yes. So he had a wife and
Dude's fucking weirdo.
He had a wife and 6 children that he just kind of ran off on, and ended up marrying a woman in Canada. And while marrying that woman, he fathered 2 more children. And adopted the name Livingston after he was indicted for raping a girl in 1849. So he was constantly
Devil Bill.
What you said, Gavin, about the tricking his kids. Like he says here, got a direct quote: "I cheat my boys every chance I get. I want to make them sharp," which is just crazy parental strategy. But you know, it was the late 1800s. You know. I'm sure they didn't have that all figured out. That's fine. I'm sure the story will get better, right? No, it doesn't. I'm lying to myself. I guess he was some other stuff like a physical description of this guy. He was 6'6". I'm sorry, he was over 6 feet tall, and he was a relatively handsome dude, and he used his looks to his advantage, but the big thing is this Bill guy. Bill Livingston. Turns out that's not his real name.
Nope. He's William Avery Rockefeller.
Yes.
And his son,
John
D. Rockefeller.
The big guy.
That's where this all ties in.
We're gonna be talking about John Rockefeller. You gotta start the story though with Bill, because like
I feel like he set the tone. You know what I mean? Like
yes. Like he kind of sets the standard for the special type of garbage we're dealing with as like people. Like these guys, they were ultimate tricksters. They were just they're scam artist to the bone. I mean, this shit runs blood deep with this family.
And that goes with everything that they did and touched and talked and everything.
Yeah, so I'm gonna skip this part a little bit about the oligarchy part, the birth of the oligarchy. It's just talking about Seneca oil. Seneca oil was a natural oil that I think they talked about in the documentary. Like the Native Americans would collect it by scraping the river surface.
Yeah,
to collect it,
pop up through the river.
But that wasn't really working in terms of operating a business where you have to collect enough oil to sell it and make a profit and pay your employees. I mean, they probably weren't being paid much, but I don't even think they had employees at this time. I'm sorry. But basically, the discovery of oil, it kind of has a funny story too, because I think on the last day of operations is when they struck for oil, and I think that kind of that kicked off the oil market overnight. It was kind of like a gold rush in terms of overnight some small town in Pennsylvania just turned into this giant oil field kind of setup, but with like the towns that would come with it. I mean, we have little oil spikes here in America that happen, but no one ever, no one's fallen for it anymore. They're not building towns on the ground. They're just usually it's just a community of like fifth wheels, trailers, small like food trucks.
So like Drake came in to try to make a distill Seneca oil.
Yeah, he tried
for lamps.
Yeah, he tried to refine it for lamp oil, because the big focus here was, I think, because at this time, whalers were basically killing off the whale population. So whale blubber was not a reliable oil, and Seneca oil could be refined into lamp oil, but it wasn't really seen as valuable because they couldn't really pull it out of the earth as quickly, and they also simultaneously, I don't think they could distill it as well or as quickly. So whale oil was on the fall, and they needed oil, and Seneca oil ended up being that replacement, coming out of kind of like it needing to happen, which is crazy. But the tie-in to John Rockefeller, because was he a part of the original company? Oh no. Okay, I remember now. Okay, so let's see here. I need to find the spot where... Okay, John Rockefeller. So the two ambitions he had in life was to make $100,000. I think it was more than... I guess $100,000. To make $100,000 and to live to be 100. After the oil situation kind of happening, he got a loan from his dad for $1,000, with 9% interest on it. And began seeing kind of he saw the oil boom.
This
saw
is
the
after
profits.
he struck. Like, this is after he drilled for it.
No. John Rockefeller was not a part of the original drilling of oil, like finding out that you could drill for oil. He wasn't a part of that process yet.
Oh.
So he wasn't. There was a couple other guys. He had borrowed some money from his dad. That was kind of a confusing part. I had to watch that documentary a few times to understand that. He had seen that oil was kind of this untapped market. Like, yes, it was a big deal that oil was found, but it really wasn't. It wasn't as big as like initially thought of. They were like, hell yeah, we're in business.
Gotcha.
John Rockefeller had like greater ambitions than whatever it was those guys were doing. Like he saw the true value in a resource such as oil. I mean, look, like our current world is defined by oil. Yep. Like that is like the gold standard replacement is the petrodollar. So, but getting a loan from his dad, he ended up setting up a partnership with a couple other businessmen, Maurice B. Clark and Samuel Andrews. Samuel Andrews was he was like a chemist, and he built an oil refinery, but he didn't really know about like getting oil ready to be sold. He just knew how to like refine it, basically, is all he was. And I think pretty quickly the company did start to make money, and John Rockefeller bought out his partners for a total of $72,500, and launched I think he launched another partnership with Andrews as his partner, Samuel Andrews. He cut the other guy out, Maurice Clark. But Andrews was still around, I'm pretty sure. When he then, after 5 years of business as Rockefeller and Andrews, which was him and Andrews' partnership, they had like acquired a bunch of different oil companies, merged with other oil companies. You know, this guy was like smart in terms of he got like the ball rolling in business, and he just started eating up the competition. Any chance he got to buy another oil refinery's business, he was doing it. And after about 5 years of that, he incorporated Standard Oil, and Standard Oil is kind of the big focal point in terms of the business side of John Rockefeller's dealings with oil. It's kind of like the official name, I guess you could say, the ultimate property. It's kind of like how, I don't want to say like Elon Musk is like is being like he's falling into like monopolizing business or anything, because he's kind of spread out. But if Elon Musk had one thing you'd say that brings him ultimate value, it'd probably be Tesla, right? Yeah. Tesla is probably his main moneymaker. SpaceX only deals with contract stuff.
That's his Standard Oil.
The Boring Company, I don't even know what that's doing right now. I know they built that tunnel, and that's about it.
You said Boeing?
No, the Boring Company.
Oh, the Boring Company.
That tunnel company Elon Musk was running.
Oh.
So, yeah, but yeah. So, I would kind of compare Standard Oil to like Elon Musk's Tesla. It's what's keeping the lights on for every other business. You know. So, got the pop the Zen out for a second. All right. So he was basically just eating up all independent mom and pop. I don't want to say mom and pop. Oil operations do have to be like somewhat large.
Yeah, but he was guzzling.
For the most part, he was just eating up
buying anything he could.
Literally just every form of competition he was claiming.
Within a few years, he controlling 90% of the marketing of oil.
Yes. And he knew the big thing that Rockefeller ended up kind of killing the rest of the competition in, finally like nailing the coffin, taking over the oil industry, was that he had realized that transportation had to be as cheap as you could possibly make it in order to that was the margin they were working off of at that point, was just transporting oil. And he had basically got in with a lot of the railway companies around the time, a lot of the railroads, by forming something called the South Improvement Company. Because he was moving so much oil through their lines, he was basically just taking all the transportation stock of the railroads and was moving his own oil, and they were able to give him the cheapest rates possible because he was keeping them running 24/7.
Yeah.
So he was just taking up like all storage space to ship.
Yeah. So I think the word for this is we learned about it in economics in high school. I remembered actually like with this because there was
trains like a FedEx truck.
Exactly.
All
Imagine if every mail company had to share FedEx trucks. Just we had one system of trucks, and Amazon was the only company that was. So every other company had to figure out other ways to transport shit around. It kind of like shocked the companies that were left around too. There's some, I'm not gonna get into like the personal anecdotes here, but by the time in 1879 when Rockefeller was 40 years old, he controlled 90% of the oil refining in the entire world.
Yeah, within not even 20 years, he was Standard Oil. Like when people would say like Standard Oil, you're like John D. Rockefeller.
Yes. And I mean,
and it's just crazy how he set everything up. Like as soon as he like started to realize, like pinch points and like transportation and stuff, he's like, okay, let me create my own system. Mm-hmm. Just immediately going to monopolize on that situation. It's insane.
Yeah, and it actually him doing that caused like a worldwide like at that point people were learning what he was doing in business, his shrewd tactics, and that's when, you know, because a lot of people talk about how like Russia in the Middle East are kind of like the big oil. I don't think Russia really has control over oil like that, like the Middle East does. I think the Middle East has the largest oil control in the world at the moment. But because Rockefeller did this, it kind of opened the eyes of other governments and other powers around the world on how valuable oil could be. And in the 1870s, Russia opened up the Caspian Sea oil deposits to private development, and two families quickly combined forces to take advantage of the opportunity. The Nobels, which was led by Ludwig Nobel, and
then the
his
infamous Rothschild.
Well, also a little note here. His son, his brother Alfred, who invented dynamite, and also was the guy who created the Nobel Prize.
Jesus fuck.
So take that as what you will. These people clearly have influence to the point where they're still kind of relevant in today's world. And also the Rothschilds, which, we'll have to make a whole other... I don't think there's too much content to make in terms of the Nobel family, but the Rothschilds, we could eat for weeks off that. We could make a 10-part series and probably scratch the surface on the Rothschilds.
Yeah, that dynasty is crazy.
But the Rothschilds, I'm pretty sure they were the ones that got London locked in with oil. They were the ones that kind of dealt with that. But we can skip kind of that because the main feature, the main thing we're kind of focusing on is the Rockefellers and
that's mostly America. Right.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. It's the secret royal family of America almost.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna skip some of the talking about Iran oil control, Burma oil control, London's work and the Rothschilds and the Nobels, Dutch royal family. These people,
like, to sum it up, they were kind of just like building up against the Rockefellers.
Yeah, but they also weren't really tapping the market. They weren't really getting the market share in America.
No, they were trying to do it on their side.
I mean, this is the Industrial Revolution. Oil is in such high demand. Like Rockefeller, I don't think he needed to expand into other markets. I think he was making plenty of money. I think he had plenty to do just in America alone, or at least this side of the earth.
Yeah, there was a crazy takeaway. Will come up later, but something I remembered is like, the average American's paycheck then was like $500. Oh, and Rockefeller was a billionaire.
Yeah. He was a billionaire.
Like
He's the world's first billionaire. Correct. Yeah, which is, I mean,
maybe had to be, bro. Because it was all, like, before they, like, locked him up and separated a bunch of his shit, it was more spread out. But as soon as they spread out a lot of his, like, companies that he was monopolizing over, he was considered the world's
confirmed billionaire. First confirmed billionaire in 1916. There we go.
Insane, dude.
So,
1916.
I don't even know how to adjust that for inflation. I'm not even gonna do the math on that.
Scum, bro.
But it's a commonly held belief nowadays in 2024. Over 100 years later, it's commonly believed that to be a billionaire in today's financial ecosystem, you got to be kind of a bad person, right? That's kind of like that's a somewhat universally held on to. I don't think anyone's like, well, the freaks on X that are like in love with Elon Musk, sure, but you get the point. For this guy to do it over 100 years ago,
like $1 million was insane back
like
then.
the solve world hunger shit. That's achievable.
I feel like
he could have done
as a billionaire in the 1900s, you very easily could have taken over the world.
Yeah, or America.
Or America.
Could have been the government.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe he is.
Oh shit.
So this is kind of so after the oil monopolization, and also oil being like kind of the key energy resource still to this day.
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention how he like skimmed fucking electric vehicles and electric appliances out of the market too.
We're gonna jump into that next now. Because originally I wanted to talk about the way this whole discussion started was talking about prohibition and how John Rockefeller very well could have orchestrated prohibition to eliminate alcohol as a potential energy source. But this documentary we watched also had like a really good point of electric transportation kind of being pushed off the block before it could really develop. And
by Rockefeller.
I genuinely think if the technology had like stayed in place for electric transportation, we probably would have been an electric society. You know?
Could have.
I mean, so we're gonna get into that right now. So the very next year, so this would have been I'm looking for just like a year mark, 1914. The very next year, after the commercial introduction of the light bulb, another invention came
Benz,
along.
baby.
German engineer Carl Benz patented a reliable two-stroke internal combustion engine. It ran on gasoline, which was another petroleum product. Became the basis for the Benz motor wagon that in 1888 became the first commercially available automobile in history. And with that stroke of luck, the business that Rockefeller and the other oligarchs had spent decades consolidating was saved. Yeah, because I think at this point, lamp oil had no value, you know, and they were kind of... It's crazy how close to like falling off the face of the earth these guys were, you know, like if they hadn't been able to make the jump from standard electricity, like using oil for lamps and stuff like that, like they really did not have market share. So when light bulbs became a lot more accessible and a lot of the world was starting to get kind of set up with power grids and electricity in their houses and stuff, oil prices just dropped like overnight. And it was like getting that high up and then getting so close to failing, only for this to perfectly happen, you know, for the engine to be invented, basically.
Yeah.
It kind of saved them. But gas-powered cars weren't really a thing yet, and they weren't... that was in 1888, and, you know, we didn't start getting cars in America until the 1900s, so, 1908, 1910, something like that. And also, like, even... I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but even when cars came out in America, they were not as common. 1 in 10 Americans owned a car. I think in, like, right after World War I. 1 in 10 Americans owning a motor vehicle. You know, it wasn't seen as this, like, overnight adoption.
Right.
For vehicles. People were not that wealthy. It didn't work. It was seen initially. It was introduced initially as a luxury. You know, they call it a motor carriage, because broke motherfuckers were still getting around on horses. So, but kind of this little pivot after not kind of being saved by the gas engine. Talks about how there was electric cars back in the late 1800s, with the first electric car being built in 1884. And then in 1897, there was a fleet of all-electric taxis in London. And also, the car, to set the land speed record was electric in 1898. And
sounds like it made more sense to have electric vehicles.
by the dawn of the 20th century, electric cars
Just
accounted
maybe.
for 28% of the automobiles in the United States. The electric had advantages over the internal combustion engine. They required no gear shifting or hand cranking and had none of the vibration, smell, or noise associated with gasoline-powered cars. It's just crazy to me because I don't see electric cars as a viable option currently. Like, I don't see the value in them.
That's
I feel like they're not
fucking me in the head.
they're not quite there. But the fact that they back then it kind of makes it's not like they like.
Well, yeah. What if like instead of this focal point being oil ran combustion vehicles, it was electric? Think about how farther we could have been.
Yeah,
Now.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Did they say how long those cars ran?
No, I mean there's some hyperlinks here. I'm sure I could get into the details of it, but I don't want to crack that. I don't want to crack that nut.
Yeah, but
on
just
podcast.
think about instead of like focal point being combustion engines being electric.
Yeah, just that idea of like I feel like it would have developed just as quickly as
Exactly,
as gas.
exactly.
That was head though.
Exactly.
But like the airplane, it's not running off electric.
I can agree with you there.
There's too much weight. It's
Yeah,
just-
I don't think they
a
could have refined it
train,
quickly enough.
Yeah, they couldn't.
But
But cars.
cars. So oh yes, so Spindletop, East Texas. There was a prospector struck oil at Spindletop in East Texas, and it blew 100,000 barrels a day and set off the next big oil boom. So, once again, oil was cheap, plentiful, and it was driving down gas prices again. Perfect timing, once again. This is lucky save number 3 at this point, I think, in terms of the story of oil making it to the market. So it kind of there's a lot of coincidence here. You know what I mean? I see it as coincidence.
I feel like he just has so much money. He's just.
I feel like these guys were kind of inside, and they were kind of holding off on little things like, okay, we know that if we end up running until they absolutely need it, they were able to tap that just in time,
and then it would be right back to normal.
Yep, exactly. So at that point, low range. Oh, so electric vehicles were low range. It says here it wasn't long before the expensive low range electric engines, kind of like what we're dealing with today in today's car market, were abandoned altogether. Big, loud, gas guzzling engines came to dominate the road, all fueled by the black gold, the Standard Oil, Shell, Gulf, Texaco, Anglo-Persian, and other oil majors of the time were drilling, refining, and selling. But the big thing here was the Supreme Court decision in 1911. So this is where...
Well, he started to get some attention because of his sketchy fucking, like, scrutiny.
Oh, yeah,
shit.
Ida Tarbell. Yes, that's right. So Ida Tarbell. So a lot of people think that... thank you for bringing that up because I jumped ahead. Ida Tarbell was a muckraking reporter. So basically, it's kind of like... there wasn't much pop culture stuff to gossip back in the day, so they gossiped about business and government and stuff like that. That was kind of more what the gossip side of the industry was looking like.
Straight news.
And Ida Tarbell was digging up dirt on John Rockefeller, and there's little secret deals with competitors, and he wasn't looked at as like a good guy around this time. Like, he wasn't coming up making all this money, and people weren't looking at him as if he was this like hero. Like, he was looked at as like this like psychotic, greedy man. I think the big thing is
that's who he was. He wasn't really hiding it. You know what I mean?
Personified as the octopus.
Yeah.
That's what they personified him as, a menacing octopus. And it makes sense because he was control. I mean, you control oil, you control the world. And
I just love how it went so long before the government gets involved.
Yeah. So it does discuss about how like he got the Supreme Court stepped up and kind of broke up his monopoly, and everyone considers like that right there, boom, monopoly broken up. That's the end of the Rockefeller story. That's it. Like when you hear about it. When you're told about John D. Rockefeller for the first time in school, and it's about like the economic side of things, all you get from that is he was he was a monopolizer, and the government stepped in and they did their job, and that's it. They broke up his monopoly, and that's all you hear about. Even though there was still so much more, he shaped what transportation culture is in America today.
Bro,
and it's kind of where we get into next.
Look what everybody's in love with.
This
big gas guzzling loud.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie. I'm not some gay liberal. I like big trucks. I like V8 engines.
Same here.
I like
my shit to be loud.
I like American engine design. I think it's very nice. It's cool. It's badass, brother. I like Harley Davidsons. I like big, useless engines that run way too loud and way too hot, and they smell. That shit's awesome.
It smells so good.
But if you could have taken it away from me before I knew what it was, I wouldn't be mad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If
I'm
just-
more of a Carl
if the-
Benz kind of guy.
If the world was just a little bit better, then I'm not gonna lie. I don't think the alternate timeline me would care that much if I, if that existed or not.
I have to drive a Prius.
Yeah, I probably would have been fine with that. Or electricity. I mean, I bet the same utilitarian development of automobiles would still happen with electric vehicles. Like, I think the pickup truck would come around
I can agree
because
to that,
farmers needed it.
Yeah.
I can see
that's my extent on
sports cars coming around because people like to go fast.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I can
But
see
they-
motorcycles.
It would be like drag racing only. It wouldn't be like a NASCAR race. It wouldn't be like F1.
Yeah, and actually, because the whole thing is, something funny to talk about. NASCAR came from Prohibition. Bunch of dudes had like souped up cars that they had nothing to do. They made their cars faster to run from police bootlegging and all that. And after Prohibition ended, these guys just had a bunch of fast cars that they didn't know what to do with, so they started racing them, and boom, that's NASCAR.
Oh, I can't.
That's literally
run
how NASCAR
moonshine
started.
no more.
Bro,
Let
wasn't
me
it in like the
run in circles.
1900s the average American consumed like 7 gallons of alcohol a year? It was some fucking...
Yeah, it was 5.
was
15
5
and
gallons?
older. The average American aged 15 and over, from the age 15 and over, consumed 5 gallons of alcohol a year, which is higher than today's average.
Dog, that's like... Isn't that like what Australia is right now?
Maybe.
fucking anywhere in Europe.
Yeah.
Or anywhere.
I mean, it's crazy because, yeah. And that's the average American.
No wonder
So
they're
anybody
fucked.
15 and over. Anybody 15
Yeah,
and over.
average, which means a lot of them are like 10 gallons.
Yeah. There's some that don't drink at all. They're devout.
Motherfuckers are like
religious people.
actually dying from drinking, just like
And then there's
croaking,
people,
like straight up just croaking all the time.
Oh,
Like-
shit,
like,
I
I
had
know
one
you-
too many beers. I'm dead.
I know these days you could drink yourself to death. I'm not saying that's not possible. It happens all the time. People get alcohol poisoning, they die. But it was like a common occurrence back then that it was
They
just
probably
like
just called it as like a heart attack or something. too.
dude spent his last $5 and just got shit. Imagine getting shit faced to death.
Just croak, bro.
Just shit faced to. You're just chilling in a bar and they tell you gotta leave. You take the bottle with you because you bought it. You lay down in
it's like
some
later, I
field. You
guess.
drink the whole thing and you just fucking die.
They find you a couple weeks later because they're seeing a bunch of crows and shit.
Mm-hmm. So, after there's let me do a quick skim because I want to make sure I'm reading this in order, and I feel like I kind of skipped something here. Where's Bustitution at?
Excuse me?
Bustitution.
Bust a what?
Bustitution.
Bustitution.
Bussy.
Bustitution.
It's like prostitution.
I think I just skimmed. I think I
Bustitution.
might have skimmed right past Bustitution.
Ayo,
But
got
that's
bussy
kind of-
on the low.
That's kind of an important thing I need to talk about.
Holla, holla.
Sorry, guys.
Tyler's got bussy on the low.
Whoa.
What does that mean?
Just saying.
Come on, guys.
Hit
This
him
is-
up at
Guys, we're trying to educate right now, guys. Come on. Put your educator hats on. Stop talking about bussy. Like that one dude in that video said, dude. You need to stop worrying about P. Diddy. You need to start worrying about this money. Real shit. Okay. Well, I'm gonna just jump back. I'm just gonna jump all the way back to where I was, and I'm sure. Here, actually, I could just do a quick document search. Control F. Bus.
I'm about to order food.
Tuition. Okay. Okay, we're good. We're good. All right. Jumping back into where we were on the timeline. Here we go. Yeah. So you had talked about this point here, Gavin, where at this point being to the amazement of the world, Rockefeller's punishment had in fact been his reward. Rather than being taken down a peg, the splitting up of the Standard Oil monopoly had launched him as the world's only acknowledged billionaire at a time when the average annual income in America was $520.
Yeah, them splitting up his fucking companies. Somehow he ended up benefiting from that situation. It's fucking.
Yeah, and the guy who struck oil in Titusville, which was in Pennsylvania, Colonel Edwin Drake. He wasn't an actual colonel, like kind of like how John Rockefeller's dad wasn't an actual doctor. But anyways, the dude didn't even think about like patenting his drilling technique or even to like buy up the land around his oil well. And he ended up in poverty, relying on an annuity from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to scrape together a living, and dying in 1880. So he went from discovering oil to getting like
bankrupt and
to getting like what's the word I'm looking for here? Welfare, not from the country, but just from the state he lived in, basically the Commonwealth. And it rather than Rockefeller experiencing a rise and fall, he just got like basically the story just like jumped up another peg. He became even more rich and he became even more ruthless. You know, the more people the more the government tightened their grasp on him, the more he fought to make more money and gain more control. So now we're gonna get into this is labeled as the subtext is part 2. Competition is a sin. So it says, when asked how he could justify the treachery and deceit with which he pursued the creation of the Standard Oil monopoly, John D. Rockefeller is reputed to have said, competition is a sin. This is the mentality of the monopolists, and it is this justification framed as religious conviction that drove the oligarchs so ruthlessly to eliminate anyone who would dare rise up as a pretender to their throne. Ironically, it was the competition between the oligarchs in the early 20th century that helped give rise to an early external threat to their empire, alcohol fuel. This was what I wanted to originally talk about on this episode. This is the only topic I had, and then once I jumped into this, I decided we should just talk about just talk about John D. Rockefeller. But this was a big one to me because my initial research is like, for some reason, like, you've never heard this up as a standard talking point before, right? Like, you've never heard anyone bring this up. Prohibition being used to stop alcohol fuel from rising as like the next.
Nah, that's like such an overlooked point when people talk about prohibition.
So when I started doing research into this, all the like major fact checking websites had points on this refuting it. I looked through them. I didn't find their arguments to be strong in terms of refuting it. And but like, for a topic you've never heard of, there's 5 different companies going to bat to say that it's false. That's kind of weird, right? Like a talking point that's not even like relevant to conversation. Yeah. Why are they so insistent, you know? So, as historian Lyle Cummins has noted of the period, the oil trust battles between Rockefeller, the Rothschilds, the Nobels, and Marcus Samuel Shell kept prices in a state of flux, and engines often had to be adaptable to the fuel that was available. So if oil was too expensive, people still needed to run their shit. Engines kind of had to be designed to run off anything, like the diesel engine, you know? I did want to talk about the inventor of the diesel engine this episode, but like I said, moved all that aside to talk about Rockefeller, because that's kind of the main thing. This is like conspiracy theory.
So juicy, bro.
It's conspiracy theory 101. You know, this is considered like you need to know about like the powerful families of the world.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
Rockefeller is the American standard when it comes to that. But in many areas where oil wasn't available, the alternative fuel was alcohol. Ethyl alcohol had been used as a fuel for lamps and engines since the early 19th century. It was a little bit more expensive, and it offered a stability of supply, especially in areas like London and Paris, which didn't have like the most predictable access to oil, you know? So alcohol has a lower heat value, or BTU, so it burns cooler, doesn't burn as hot as gasoline, as well as it doesn't put off the same fumes, doesn't put off the same emissions. I mean, imagine a world where, I know we just talked about electricity, and maybe electricity, so we had said like the idea of like, oh yeah, maybe electricity like wouldn't have been, could have been like the standard, but what about alcohol? You can make it yourself. I mean, the whole thing with like moonshine, like they didn't develop the techniques to make to build the distilleries to make moonshine. They didn't develop that just because they wanted to drink. Like they had equipment that ran off of that alcohol, that grain alcohol.
That top notch.
I mean, farmers could make it themselves on their property, keep all their equipment running on it. They wouldn't have to pay for, go into town and get oil or have like an oil supply delivered to their farm. And I'm sure, with how easy it would be to make, that could have been something that I see it as like a process of like, how we deal with landfills, how landfills are kind of like a process of getting rid of trash. I feel like we could have been able to turn a lot of like food waste into alcohol. You can
anything fermented, bro.
You can ferment anything. Anything fermented turns into alcohol, and then they can refine that to alcohol. Like it didn't require anything special, any specific process.
Any sort of vegetable.
If they're 3D printing meat nowadays, you could have done fucking anything.
This was the alternative reality.
Yeah, you can ferment a lot of shit, and
you could have been making your
fuel.
own. You could have been making your own fuel in your backyard. Instead, you're going to be eating 3D printed meat in the next 5 years.
For real.
So, it's kind of, alcohol is kind of better than gasoline in a lot of these ways. Lower emissions, burning cooler, not having a smell. It's a little bit more stable, I think, too. And one early supporter of alcohol fuel was Henry Ford. The monarch of the Ford Motor Company. He designed his Model T to run on either alcohol or gasoline, thinking it would have been smart for new markets, and it boosts the independent American farms that he felt were so vital to the nation. So Henry Ford was a pretty big. I'm not gonna say like this guy's like a superhero or anything. He did invent the 5-day work week, though. A lot of people want to talk about how much they hate Henry Ford and how he's the guy that like started the catalyst of like capitalism and companies taking advantage of families, men, women, children. But I think he was a big proponent of getting rid of child labor and also 5-day work week. But now everyone wants 4-day work week, so whatever that means.
Do 10-hour shifts 4 days a week.
I do like
pretty
that.
Fucking
no,
nice.
they want 4 8-hour shifts.
Oh, well, that's what like a lot of people in Europe do.
Mm-hmm.
And what are they? A bunch of sissy boys. Oh.
Sissy boys.
Come on, dude, don't get political, dude.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
No, I'm just kidding.
Free healthcare.
60% tax rate. So yeah, Henry Ford coming in hot with the gas with a hybrid engine that could run on either fuel source.
Fire.
I mean, imagine that.
Coming in with big dick energy.
Even like I'm trying to imagine every possible way this could have changed society. Even if we didn't adapt alcohol as a main fuel source, imagine if you could choose between alcohol. I mean, you kind of can now actually, because like E85, high octane fuel and stuff. But still, regardless, this stuff's been around too long. The damage has already been done. It's kind of it is what it is, Oh, here we go. We have a little excerpt from Henry Ford here. The fuel of the future is going to come from fruit like that sumac out by the road, or from apples, weeds, sawdust, almost anything. There's fuel in every bit of vegetable matter that can be fermented. Farmers looking to capitalize on this lobbied for the repeal of a $2.08 per gallon alcohol tax. Oh, yes. So there was
He had a law passed or something.
So during the Civil War, the government put a tax on alcohol to help fund the fight, right? After the Civil War ended, they never got rid of the tax. They just kept the tax there, and people kept paying, and they're like, wait, hold on. If we want alcohol fuel to be cheaper, we need to remove this tax, at least on the fuel. Like, at least on the fuel, we have to make it cheaper. And actually, Teddy Roosevelt, in support of a bill to repeal the alcohol tax, President Teddy Roosevelt told the U.S. Congress in 1906, the Standard Oil Company has, largely by unfair or unlawful methods, crushed out home competition. It is highly desirable that an element of competition should be introduced by the passage of some such law as that which has already passed the House, putting alcohol used in the arts and manufactures upon the free list. Teddy Roosevelt is the best guy. What am I looking at there? Who is that? Is that Teddy Roosevelt?
It's my Uber Eats driver.
Jesus. Come on, dude.
What, bro?
Text her real quick. Ask her if she's driving an alcohol-filled vehicle to get
She's
here.
driving a 3 Series over here.
A 3 Series BMW?
Yeah.
To deliver you what?
Culver's.
What? You're getting Culver's delivered by a lady driving a 3 Series? Did you pay for like Uber X or
Uber X.
Uber Luxury? The
private-
Lux? Did you get a Lux delivery on Uber Eats?
Yeah.
Nice. All right, so the alcohol tax was repealed in 1906, and for a time, corn ethanol, which is what we know ethanol as, was at 14 cents a gallon. It was cheaper than gasoline at 22 cents a gallon. So if we were gonna adopt fuel, it would have been like alcohol fuel, ethanol. It would have been right there at that point in history. Ethanol was cheaper than gasoline, which was crazy because it was cheap, unpatentable, unmonopolizable. The production was open to anybody with raw vegetable matter and a still, which, by the way, stills were built out of like straight junk. Like it was just scrap metal, usually like, you built it yourself. It was kind of, that's how it worked.
Well, everything was made out of metal, so if you broke something...
It was made out of sheet metal. You could have fabricated the part yourself. I mean, these people built it. Huh?
Crash your car.
Yeah, there you go. So, it kind of that tax being repealed, I think, kind of lit the fire under the oil company's ass to like really get active and figure out how to stomp this out.
Yep. So they capitalized on a shitty issue.
Yeah, fuels. So it says 1909 USGS report comparing gas and alcohol engines had noted that a significant point in alcohol fuels' favor was that there were fewer restrictions on alcohol engines. For the oligarchs, the answer was simple. Find a way to place greater restrictions on alcohol engines. Thankfully for them, the answer to their problem was already gaining popular support. And here's where it comes. In the 19th century, America had a drinking problem. By 1830, the average American over 15 years old drank 7 gallons of pure alcohol per year, 3 times higher than today's average. This led to the first anti-alcohol movements in the 1830s and 1840s and the formation of the Prohibition Party in 1869 and the Women's Christian Temperance Union in the 1870s. The movement enjoyed widespread and growing support but had few political successes. Maine flirted with the prohibition by outlawing the sale and manufacture of liquor in 1851, but the ban only lasted 5 years. So it kind of seems like this happened so perfectly. It kind of, I'm trying to think of like how to frame it, and like it's another coincidence, right? It's just another coincidence. I'm not even keeping track anymore. I think this is like number 5 or 6. Yeah. Coincidentally, all this support happens. And it's not unheard of for billionaire super families to fund opposition, Definitely. I mean, everyone taught the meme nowadays is like the Rothschilds are paying like, the Rothschilds are suppressing me, That's like the schizo meme. Yeah. They're paying people to spy on me. Well, George Soros is paying protesters to do this or do that, or, they're using it, if that's true, if they're using that as a function. It's a little bit different of an application nowadays. A lot of people see it as a way to start civil unrest, so that way the government can then clamp down on us further. Yeah. This is just like the ultimate. I think this is the beginning of that. Yeah.
We'll go right after this. It goes into ASL and who made quote unquote generous donations to that league.
Yes. So
also coincidentally, longtime friend of Buddy Rockefeller.
Yeah. So and the Anti-Saloon League, and also I think Henry Ford was a part of the Anti-Saloon League.
Was he really?
Yeah,
I
think
did
so.
not know that. That's crazy. Huh.
So,
well, it's probably because fucking Rockefeller was up in Ford's shit like, hey, yo.
I
Let's
see
make
it.
some-
You know how I see this? Because
you
a
know
lot
what
of
I'm
people
saying?
like bring this up as an argument. It's like, but they were a part of the anti-saloon league together. I see this as a Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein thing. They're both rich. They're going to be in photos together.
Exactly.
Let's not forget Donald Trump went to one of the Clintons' birthday parties. Found that out recently. So we're not going to talk about Trump on this episode.
Found that out recently.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about Trump on this episode, but he's getting sentenced on my birthday. So we'll see how that goes. This changed with the formation of the Anti-Saloon League in Standard Oil's birth state of Ohio in 1893. The ASL was started by John D. Rockefeller's longtime personal friend, Howard Hyde Russell, and was bankrolled in part by generous annual donations from Rockefeller himself. Clearly a big proponent of the Anti-Saloon League. With Rockefeller's backing, quickly became the driving force and behind a national movement to outlaw the production and sale of alcohol. I kind of talked about this with you guys when we were on Discord the other night, but like I don't think they could have rallied this much support. I can't believe that.
What do you mean, just like organically?
I don't think they could rally enough support in America to outlaw alcohol. It's so
Wait, what are you
culturally
saying right now?
It's so no back then. It's so culturally significant to so many different religions, so many different people. You know, there's alcohol is like a part
It's
of human
culture.
It's
society.
like tobacco. It's
Yeah.
like tobacco
Is there any
products.
proof though to
Kinda.
like say like they faked anything? Like
Well, it's just like vested interests. So
Yeah,
they
I
just
mean,
started
these
putting a lot of
dudes-
money towards the people that were supporting prohibition.
Networks didn't run as deep as they do now. You know, when it comes to like powerful people reaching each other, they don't run that deep back then.
Yeah.
Obviously, everything's shrouded in conspiracy and mystery now. Everything is kept secret. Everything is kept, hidden. They actively pay people to cover their steps up for themselves. They didn't have to do that back then because there wasn't people researching this. There wasn't people.
Nobody was like
a dude
nobody
was
had
waking
the
up.
resources to like stick their nose and shit.
Yeah, a dude was waking up and was like, "I gotta go get this motherfucking money.
Exactly.
I gotta feed
So
my 10 children."
There's like
they
the will to
literally could've
survive,
done
you know.
Whatever.
Yeah. These people, people back
That's
then were
why
living out of.
That's why it took fucking 40 years for the Supreme Court to do anything about Rockefeller's monopoly.
Only making
anyway.
it better for him.
The fucking Supreme Court, the government.
So this is actually funny. So I remember I heard him talk about this on a podcast. But Rockefeller was a teetotaler himself, not from moral concern, but because he was afraid that good cheer among friends would lead to his downfall in business. Stephen Harkness, one of the silent partner investors in Standard Oil and a director in the company up until his death, had caught Rockefeller's eye when he made a fortune buying up whiskey in advance of a new excise tax that he had been tipped about and selling it at a huge profit after the tax. So he bought a bunch of whiskey up around America, and then once this tax kicked in, he put it out for sale. Crazy. So this dude who's so against drinking is cool with one of his directors of his company buying up a bunch of alcohol and then taking advantage of selling it. Not when it became totally illegal, obviously, but when like a large tax rate had been placed on it. Kind of nuts. So it talks about how like Rockefeller and Standard Oil clearly were not concerned about the moral state of the nation, because that's what the prohibition push had been all about: morals, making a godlier society, making America better. Obviously, it was also the perfect time to grow what we now see as modern. Well, they're kind of going extinct now, but the crime family,
Yeah.
the Chicago mob. It opened up organized crime a bunch. It made the perfect environment for organized crime to homogenize, to grow, because of prohibition. You hear about Al Capone and those type of people around that time period coming up because of prohibition. So it was kind of like the perfect opportunity for a lot of bad people to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was
Definitely.
perfect. And two groups of people on different sides of the spectrum doing bad shit, but politically speaking, and doing bad shit, but, publicly speaking, taking advantage of people regardless. And prohibition did come in 1920, and it had an interesting side effect. Although it didn't ban the use of ethanol as a fuel directly, it did lead to increasingly burdensome restrictions requiring producers to add petroleum products to their ethanol to make it poisonous before it could be sold. So their thing was, yeah, technically you could drink ethanol and get drunk off of it. It would fuck you up. It would probably kill you, but you could do it. So they needed to put something in it that poisoned it. What was the byproduct they put in it? Petroleum products. So even then, even after... It's like when Sony like let Xbox let Microsoft put the Blu-ray player in the Xbox Ones, because like that was like a selling point for Xbox.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we got Blu-ray players, but every Xbox you bought paid Sony for the Blu-ray player. So it was like even when they're competing, Rockefeller was still making direct money off of his competition, you know. And alcohol fuel. Now completely unable to, and I think it also did make it made it poisonous to be, like, it made it poisonous to drink, but I think it did fuck with some of the chemical factors of ethanol to where it didn't run as effective.
Gotcha.
So it kind of muddied it up in a way.
I feel like it, like at this point in the timeline, it starts to get really white collar.
Yeah, I think so.
Because this is when like GM, like General Motors,
We're about to
starts
get
coming
into bustitution. That's
Yeah.
what the GM thing is. So, now completely unable to compete with gasoline, ethanol fuel was abandoned altogether by the automotive industry. So, boom, that's an industry dead. That's effectively two forms of. When I say auto industry, I mean just strictly speaking cars, not mass transportation, but personal transportation. Boom. Electricity first, then ethanol. He now has the subjective claim over the automotive industry.
Yeah.
Obviously, other forms of transportation still existed at this time. Personally, one I'm very excited to talk about, electric rail car systems. So, by the end of World War I, private car ownership was still a relative rarity. Only 1 in 10 Americans owned a car. Keep in mind, highways were not around back then. So, like, traveling in between states, train. You had to use a train. Trains, I mean, back then, apparently trains were the shit.
Dude.
I want to go on a train ride so bad. Like, I want to go on, like, a multi-state train ride.
Have you been
The
on
older
like a
ones?
old train ride?
I've seen people, like, they'll post on their Snapchat story of their old train rides, but it's sick.
It looks so, like, pleasant. You know what I mean?
You get some insane views.
Because it's, like, more comfortable than an airplane. Obviously, it's slower. But I think there's a certain level of leisure to take a part of. You know, like the stereotypical, whenever you see a movie that involves like characters on a train, what are they always doing? It's like, oh, they're reading the newspaper. Oh, that person's just looking out the window. Oh, that guy's taking a nap. Oh, they got meals. And
I went on the one in the Grand Canyon. Like the one that's around the Grand Canyon. They're just like lounges. It's like a big booth.
Yeah,
Like
but
a restaurant booth.
But you could take like trains, like sleeper cars.
Yeah.
You know, like you can have like little private. They're not the best. You're not getting a hotel experience. I think it was like shared bathrooms and stuff like that. But
nowadays, Greyhounds are just more applicable.
Yeah, but buses.
Yeah.
Buses.
Yeah.
We're gonna start talking about some buses. We're gonna talk about some motherfucking buses.
I think my food's gonna be.
So we can pause when your food gets here. Just let me know, and I can cut the convo. But
yeah, well,
I can at least tie up this real quick. So private car ownership was still a relative rarity. Only 1 in 10 Americans owned a car, and rail was still the transportation of choice for the vast majority of the public. And city dwellers in most major cities relied on electric trolley networks to transport them around town. In 1936, General Motors formed a front company, National City Lines, along with Firestone Tire and Standard Oil of California to implement a process of bustitution, scrapping streetcars and tearing up railways to replace them with GM's own buses running on Standard Oil-supplied diesel. The plan was remarkably successful. Also, a little side note here. You know the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Mm-hmm. You know he's talking about... You've never seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Nah.
Seriously?
Are you shitting me, Gavin?
You need to watch that when you get home. I'm like not joking. That movie is
so good.
So good. So good.
I will fucking rip your nipple off, bro.
I know.
No, I'm hard.
So, in the
Thanks.
movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Gavin, the lead guy Eddie, he's a PI,
mm-hmm.
and but one of the scenes is he goes and drinks at this bar, where a bunch of rail car workers drink. And he's talking to him. The rail car system is getting, it's obsolete. It's getting taken out of the city. I think it's L.A., if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think
they're in
so.
L.A. in the like 1930s, 1940s. Okay, well, I can't really explain that part, but Toontown exists. Like it's like a real life thing attached to L.A. Cartoons are like a thing like that, if that makes sense. Doesn't explain how they were invented, how that came to be. But anyways, the main point is he goes to this bar where only rail car workers drink, and like there's a dude who's like literally like asleep on the table because he's so drunk because he was getting laid off. Like everyone was getting laid off because they were scrapping the rail cars because buses and automobiles were taking over at the time, which is kind of like a cool little thing to like,
They added
Busitution.
pinpoint in pop culture like that. Like you never hear that talked about in a movie except for, of all movies, Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Gotcha.
So, GM linking up with Rockefeller. All you need is the vehicle and the fuel, and then once again, he works it out. He gets the best form of transportation, at least it's looked at as like the future at the time, and he integrates it, gets rid of all these wire cars.
Yeah.
There's a lot more information that we're about to jump into about like how drastic this project went, how quickly it was developed.